Hi there, welcome to Poetics Gaming. Today we're going to continue our discussion of the champions from Super Fantasy Brawl, looking at both their ability cards and their statistics as they compare to other champions. If you missed the first video, we're going to first go over the character cards for the champions, including their upgraded sides. Then we're going to look at their ability cards, including their manipulation core cards, the destruction core cards, and the creation core cards. Finally, we'll look at their statistics and see how they compare to the rest of the champions that have been released so far. In the first video, we went over Deryn, Goldar, Gwen, as well as the methodology for determining the statistics of each of the champions. Today we're going to be discussing Kilgore, Tsu Xiao, Deryn, Rath, Mariusz, and Korvash. In the next video, we'll go over Lorelei, Nevermore, Taze, Kolel, Solka, and Auket. Now let's talk about Kilgore, the Ravager. He has 1 armor and 7 health in his unupgraded side, and if he secures a kill, he gets 1 armor and 8 health, and he gains the ability Immune to Stun. Now, of the abilities that we will see on the upgraded sides of the champions, this one is particularly weak. It's not useless, but it's not particularly helpful either, given the low number of stun effects that are created in the game through ability cards. But he makes up for it in other ways. Kilgore's manipulation core cards start with a skill card called Throw. You move 2, and then the status says one of Kilgore's adjacent allies may jump 3. The idea here, obviously, is that Kilgore is throwing the ally somewhere. Now, this is a fantastic card for manipulating the play space and putting champions exactly where you need them. Having an adjacent ally jump 3 may enable Kilgore to give another champion who maybe has low movement or low maneuverability the ability to get to where they need to be quickly. His second manipulation core card is an attack called Maul Thrash. He moves 1 and then makes a melee attack with a strength of 2, and after the attack, push 2. Now this card has a total possible damage of 4 if you manage to position Kilgore in such a way that when he delivers the attack, his target cannot be moved backwards. Or it can be used just to reposition another champion so that you can secure a challenge. Kilgore's destruction core cards start with a skill called Relentless Advance. You move 1 and then make a direct shot with a range of 2, and your target is forced 1, meaning you can move them in any direction you wish, and then you place Kilgore in the target's original hex. This provides him quite a bit of maneuverability and is a nice card for securing those challenges or those areas that you need. His next card is his reaction. It is called Darksteel Armor, and it provides the champion with +1 armor, and then after the attack, the target gains +2 armor until the end of the turn, providing Kilgore or whoever is on his team a nice bit of sustainability. Kilgore's creation core cards start with an attack called Fury. You move 2, and then you're going to target everything around Kilgore with a strength 2 attack. And after the attack, you're going to heal 1. This is a nice card, pretty basic attack, but it provides you with that heal 1, which is good for keeping Kilgore on the board. His next creation core card is an attack called Appetite for Destruction. You do not move for it, but you do make a melee attack with a strength of 1. The card has lifesteal, meaning that the amount of damage you do, you gain back as health, and the status text says this card gains +2 strength for every ready standard core you control. So, you use your creation core to play the card, and if you have your destruction and manipulation cores still available, that'll give you +4 strength on the attack, making it a strength 5 attack potentially if it's the first card you play, making it a nice bit of spiky damage to play against other champions who may be weakened or need to have a decent chunk of health taken out of them. So how does Kilgore stack up to the rest of the champions? Well, he has below average health, but just barely. He has above average armor, which is good for keeping him on the board. He's slow with below average movement, and he doesn't bring a whole lot of damage to the table on a per card basis. However, he does have an above average highest single damage, that is, dealing damage to another champion with using only his cards on a single turn with 9. What this means is, like Gwen, he can defeat another enemy champion on a single turn using only his cards if no reactions are played. He has below average violence and maneuverability, but his sustain is the best in the game. He is going to stay on the board for quite a long time due to that high level of sustain. His control is above average, meaning that he is very good at controlling areas of the board. And his deck is the lowest in the game, meaning he does nothing for you in terms of manipulating your hand or deck or your opponent's hand or deck. Overall, though, he has a below average number of above average categories. However, that being said, Kilgore is a very good, what I would call, bruiser. He's not exceptionally tanky, but he's not tanky either. He doesn't move very quickly, but he's capable of dealing high single target damage and of controlling a space and staying in it. He's an excellent choice for anyone who wants someone a bit tanky, but also who is capable of dealing a bit of damage at the same time. Moving on to Tsu Xiao, the Jade Claw. Tsu Xiao has 0 armor and 9 health, and when he secures a kill, he does not gain any armor or health, but he does gain the status effect adjacent enemies suffer -1 armor. This is an excellent status effect because it makes Tsu Xiao even more dangerous on the battlefield. Tsu Xiao's manipulation core cards start with an attack called Challenge. You move 1 and make a direct shot 2 hexes away for a strength of 2, and after the attack you pull 1. Now effectively what this means is that he makes the attack and then pulls the champion to be adjacent to him. This is excellent for setting up other attacks that Tsu Xiao may have, which we'll go over very shortly. His next manipulation core card is his reaction. It's called Revenge, and it says after the attack, if the target was not taken out of action, the attacker also severs the attack damage. Now this can be a particularly powerful reaction if the attacker has a high level of armor, because they won't be able to mitigate the attack damage they just did, potentially even knocking that character out. Tsu Xiao's destruction core cards start with an attack called Double Strike. You do not move at all, but you make a melee attack with a strength of 2. Before the attack, however, you're going to dash 2, which means that you will dash 2 hexes in a hex row. The attack also has the keyword double. What this means is that you will apply the attack strength twice, meaning that if you play this card only, you will deal 4 damage to another champion, which is a decent amount of damage. His next destruction core card is a skill called Flash of Jade. You move 2, and then in the 3 hexes next to him, you will deal damage to each target until they are bloodied. What that means is that you will deal damage to each target until they are at half health, rounded down. Now, of all the cards that we will see for Tsu Xiao, this one, I would argue, is his signature card. The ability to deal damage to the enemy champions until they are at half health is unparalleled in the game for a variety of reasons. The first is, this is a skill card. It cannot be reacted to. So your opponent will have no option but to eat that damage. The second is, because it says deal damage to each target, that means that armor does not mitigate the damage that is coming as a result of this skill card. In the game, there is no other skill that can deal this much damage to multiple targets in one single card. Coming off of Tsu Xiao's incredible destruction core cards, we have the creation core card Focus. It's a skill card. You move 1, and then your champions gain +1 damage and +1 movement until the end of the turn. This is a nice setup card for the rest of his attacks, or perhaps for the attacks of your other champions. His next creation core card is an attack called Pounce. It's a melee attack with a strength of 1, but before the attack you're going to jump 3, and after the attack you're going to push 1. This card is excellent for positioning Tsu Xiao for where you want him to be, And if you play it cleverly, you can get 2 damage off on a champion, with the push being translated into damage if your target cannot move backwards. So how does Tsu Xiao stack up to the rest of the champions in the game? He has the highest health statistic, tied only with Tay's, but he has the worst armor and movement. His average damage per card is below average, but his highest single damage is well above average, and in fact is the second highest in the game. This makes him a legitimate threat to any champion thus far released. His violence and maneuverability are above average. He has no sustain, limited control, and no deck. And overall, his number of above average categories is below average. So where does Tsu Xiao sit? Well, as we've seen with other champions, he fits into a particular niche. He is extremely good at getting into a fight and dealing high amounts of damage. His health makes him an extremely sticky combatant, and he's difficult to remove from the board for that reason. When you couple that with his Red Destruction core card, Flash of Jade, he becomes an extremely compelling competitive option. And in fact, I think we'll see a lot of Tsu Xiao teams when the competitive scene develops for his health, his high damage potential, and for the Flash of Jade card. Moving on to Deryn, the Huntress of the Eastwood. Deryn has 0 armor and 7 health, and when she secures a kill, her upgraded side gives her the ability that when she is standing on a trap hex, she gains +2 armor, and when she is in a trap hex, you do not trigger traps. This is an excellent upgraded ability because it gives her armor on par with Deryn and Lorelei, making her extremely tanky and difficult to remove from the board. Deryn's manipulation core cards start with a skill called Prowl. You move 2, draw 2, and plan 1. You also may look at a trap token in play, then place it on any free trap hex. This is an excellent utility card that allows you to set up a big turn, because you draw 2 cards, and then one of the cards in your hands you may place on top of your deck, allowing you to have that particular ability card for your next turn. Deryn's second manipulation core ability card is an attack called Spring the Trap. You move 2, make an indirect attack range of 4 for a strength of 2. If the target is in a trap hex, the attack gains +2 strength, and after the attack, if the target is in a trap hex, they suffer stun. Now, when your target is not in a trap hex, this is a fairly standard attack, but if they are in a trap hex, it becomes a lot more powerful, adding 2 damage to it for a total of 4, and stunning that opposing champion, making this attack very, very powerful if your opponent is positioned properly, or rather for them, improperly. Deryn's Destruction core ability cards start with an attack called Heavy Shot. You move 2, make an attack, minimum range 2, maximum range 3, for a strength of 2. This attack gains +1 strength if Deryn is on a trap hex, and after the attack, push 1, or push 2 if Deryn is on a trap hex. If you're on a trap hex, the potential damage of this card goes from 2 all the way to 5, meaning that if you've appropriately positioned Deryn, this attack becomes something very serious for your opponent to deal with, and could possibly take out most champions if they're already injured. The second of her Destruction core ability cards is a skill called Hunter's Quarry. Move 2, and then target someone in a direct line 4 hexes away. The next attack on the target this turn ignores defense and gains +1 attack strength. This could be an excellent card for setting up one of Deryn's other attacks, or perhaps the attack of another champion on her team. This is because it will ignore armor, including on champions like Lorelei or Deryn, who have high armor values. The creation core cards for Deryn start with her reaction, called Ambush. It gives the target of the attack +1 armor, and after the attack you can place Deryn next to the attacker. This is a particularly good reaction because it gives the target of the attack an average amount of sustainability, but it also allows you to move Deryn next to the attacker, which is a degree of movement and board control you don't really see on other reactions. Deryn could, theoretically, be on the other side of the board, and after this reaction is played, be placed in an area that might be useful for achieving a challenge. Her second creation core card is an attack called Hit and Run. You move 3, make an indirect attack range of 2 for a strength of 2, and after the attack, you dash 2. This is a great card for getting Deryn around the board and positioned to where she needs to be to either damage other champions or to achieve those challenges. So how does Deryn stack up to the rest of the champions? Well, her health is below average and she has the lowest armor statistic in the game. However, this is more than made up for by her highest movement statistic in the game, her above average damage per card, and the highest single damage in the game. The only other champion who can do as much damage as Deryn on a single turn is Korvash. Her violence is above average, but her maneuverability, sustain, and control are below average. And perhaps surprisingly, her deck is above average. The number of categories in which she has an above average statistic is 5. Overall, Deryn is a very compelling option for any team. She can move around the board very easily, and if positioned correctly, she can deal an incredible amount of damage to a single champion. Even if a reaction is played, depending on that reaction, she still will be able to take out any of the champions that are currently in the game, including Tsu and Tsu Xiao, who have the highest amount of health. The next champion we're going to talk about is Rath, Stalker Beneath. Rath has 0 armor and 6 health, and when he secures a kill, he gains 1 health and the ability that his attacks gain poison 1. What this means is that if damage is dealt on an attack, it deals 1 additional damage. Rath is, as we'll see, a mobile damage dealer, and this upgraded effect allows him to be even more dangerous to the opponents that he'll be playing against. The first of Rath's Manipulation Core card abilities is an attack called Double Dealing. You move 2, make an indirect attack range of 2 for a strength of 2 with the keyword double. What this means is that you'll do the attack damage twice. So this attack in total should do 4 damage to an unarmored target. His next Manipulation Core ability card is a skill called Nightshade. You move 2, and then you draw 2, plan 1. Rath's next attack this turn ignores defense. So this is a great utility card for a variety of reasons. 1, it allows you to draw 2 cards, increasing your options, and plan one of those cards, meaning that you will get that card back on your next turn. Next, it will allow you to do an attack against a heavily armed target bypassing their armor, making Rath into that sort of dangerous damage dealer that he is designed to be. Rath's Destruction Core cards start with a skill called Stalk Beneath. Its range is melee, and it says deal 2 damage to an adjacent enemy. If damage was dealt, place Rath adjacent to an ally. This is a card that you can use to bypass someone's armor because it says deal 2 damage, it is not an attack, and because it's a skill, it cannot be reacted to. On top of that, it allows you to move Rath around the board fairly easily because it says place Rath adjacent to an ally. And this means that Rath can be placed from one side of the board to another as long as he is adjacent to an ally. The next of his Destruction Core cards is an attack called Sneak Attack. You'll move 2, make a melee attack, strength of 2, and it says reactions cannot be played during this attack. This is a fantastic card for guaranteeing damage against an unarmored target. The first of Rath's Creation Core cards is an attack called Burrow. It's a melee attack with the strength of 3, and before the attack you will jump, and after the attack you will jump. What this means is that you can jump 2, ignoring other champions, and then after you've made the attack, jump 2 away. This gives Rath a much needed degree of maneuverability compared to his below average movement. His next Creation Core ability card is his Reaction, Go to Ground. It gives the target of the attack +1 armor, and after the attack allows the target to jump 2, making them move away in whichever direction you would like. This is a great card to play, not only for the sustainability of the +1 armor, but also for positioning your champions where they need to be, either to land a good attack or to secure an area of the board for a challenge. Comparing Rath to the other champions, we see that he has below average health, he has the worst armor statistic in the game, and below average movement. But this is made up for by his high average damage per card, his highest single damage, his high violence statistic, and his high maneuverability statistic. He has below average sustain and no control, but he does bring an above average amount of deck to the team that he is on. The number of above average categories he has is 5, more than the average of 4.3. So where does Rath sit in the game? Well, he's not particularly quick, but he is extremely maneuverable and capable of dealing a lot of damage to a champion in a turn. This makes him, as he was designed, a mobile damage dealer. But due to his low health, it is dangerous to keep him adjacent to his enemies because most champions in the game can knock him out in a single turn, even without the optimal hand of cards. So for that reason, I would say that Rath requires a degree of expertise or experience to play well. After Rath, we have Mariusz the Cursed. Mariusz has 0 armor and 7 health, and when he gets a kill, he gains the effect of lifesteal on his attacks while he is bloodied, and we'll see how this factors into his ability cards. Mariusz's manipulation core cards start with an attack called Ravenous Bite. It's a melee attack for a strength of 3. Before the attack, he can dash 2, and the attack has lifesteal, giving him a vital bit of sustainability. The next of Mariusz's manipulation core cards is a skill called Stalk the Prey. Place Mariusz adjacent to an enemy. Each adjacent bloodied enemy suffers stun. This is an excellent skill card for getting Mariusz on the board where you need him, because you can place him adjacent to where he needs to be, even if they were to be on the other side of the board. The Destruction Core ability cards is where we see Mariusz's kit come into its own. The first of these is an attack card called Closing In. Mariusz moves 2 and makes a melee attack for a strength of 2, but before the attack he can dash 2. And if he is bloodied, this attack gains double, meaning that if Mariusz is bloodied, the damage is applied twice. Now, Mariusz thrives in the bloodied state, which for him means he needs to be at 3 health or less. If he is not bloodied, his attacks are still pretty good, but really, as we'll see at the end in the statistical discussion, if he is bloodied, he comes into a whole different level of damage dealing. The next Destruction Core ability card is an attack called Bone to Pick. Mariusz moves 1, makes a melee attack with a strength of 2. Before the attack, if he is bloodied, he dashes 2, and if he's bloodied, this attack gains +2. So once again, if Mariusz is bloodied, this becomes an extremely dangerous attack to his opponents. Mariusz's Creation Core ability cards start with an attack called Overpower. He moves 1 and then makes a melee attack with a strength of 2. Before the attack, he dashes 2, and after the attack, if he's bloodied, he forces 1, meaning he moves his target 1 hex in any direction he wishes. As we see from his destruction cards, he thrives in the bloodied condition, and so if he's bloodied, this gives him a nice little bit of control. The next Creation Core ability card is his reaction, called a Cornered Beast. After the attack, enemies adjacent to the target suffer 2 damage, and as with other ability cards, this damage goes through armor and cannot be reacted to in any way. So how does Mariusz stack up to the rest of the champions in the game? Well, in order to understand the answer to that question, we have to understand that Mariusz exists in 2 states, one in which he is not bloodied and one in which he is. Regardless of his state, he has below average health, no armor, and below average movement. His average damage per card is above average in his normal state, but in his bloodied state, it jumps to the highest average damage per card at 2.17. When he is not bloodied, he has below average single damage, he has below average violence, but above average maneuverability. His sustain, control, and deck are all also below average. But when he is bloodied, his highest single damage, violence, and maneuverability all become above average, and in fact his maneuverability is the highest in the game. So what does this mean for players who want to use Mariusz? Well, you need to get him in the bloody condition in order for him to really live up to his reputation as a maneuverable, high damage dealing character. Due to this, however, I think that, just like Rath, it requires a degree of experience and skill to use him well. For many players, Mariusz's necessity, being bloodied, will prove too difficult in a game to achieve and to use Mariusz well. I do think, however, that a lot of people will get enjoyment out of his kit because he is highly maneuverable and can do damage even if he isn't bloodied. The last champion we're going to take a look at in this video is Korvash, wielder of Scorn Blade. Korvash has 0 armor and 8 health. And when he secures a kill, he has 0 armor, but his health goes up to 9, and he gains the effect that his attacks ignore defense if the target is bloodied. We'll see how this plays into his kit as a high damage dealer. Korvash's manipulation core cards start with a skill called Shockwave. Move 1, and within a melee range, push 1 and stun. This means that you can push someone back 1 or do damage if they can't move back 1, and stun, meaning that your opponent has to discard a card that is associated with that champion, or if they can't do that, show you their hand. This is an excellent utility card for controlling the board and also for altering the deck of your opponent. His next manipulation core ability card is his reaction, Blood Curdling Roar. It gives the target of the attack +2 armor, and after the attack, if the attacker is bloodied, ignore any post-attack effects. This is an excellent reaction card, not only for the sustainability that it gives the target, but also for the status effect, allowing the target of the attack to ignore perhaps pushes, pulls, fears, and other post-attack effects that may be extremely detrimental to controlling the board or to staying on the board. The destruction core cards for Korvash start with an attack called Hell Hath No Fury. Korvash moves 2, makes an indirect attack range of 2 for a strength of 3, and after the attack, if the target is bloodied, it suffers force 1. So, this is an excellent attack because it deals a good amount of damage at 3, does not require line of sight, and if the target is bloodied, it gives Korvash a degree of control because he can move his target 1 hex in any direction he likes. The other destruction core ability card for Korvash is an attack called Chop. He targets everyone around him, and it's a strength 0. However, for each target around him, this attack gains +2 strength, making it potentially the highest damaging attack in the game. Korvash's reputation as a damage dealer is continued with his creation core cards. The first of these is an attack called Leaping Strike. Korvash moves 1 and makes a melee attack with a strength of 3, but before the attack he can also jump 2. This is a highly maneuverable card for Korvash, and it deals a decent amount of damage, making it a great card to come up into your hand. The next creation core card for Korvash is an attack called Sap Strength. Korvash moves 2, makes a direct line attack range of 2 for 2 damage, and if the target is bloodied, this attack gains 2 strength, making it possibly deal 4 damage. This is an excellent card for knocking out those champions who have already been damaged. How does Korvash compare to the other champions in the game? He has above average health, but low armor and below average movement. He has a high average damage per card, and he has the highest single damage in the game, meaning that using only his cards in a single turn, he can deliver 11 points of damage. This is equaled only by Deryn. He has above average violence, below average maneuverability, but above average sustain. He has below average control and below average deck. Lastly, 5 of Korvash's statistical categories are above average. So, where does he sit in the game? Well, because of his higher than average health, his high average damage per card, and the fact that he can deliver the highest single damage in the game, I think Korvash is an extremely compelling pick for any team looking to add a high damage dealer to their composition. The only detriment to Korvash is his low movement and low control and deck. But looking at his categories, you can see he brings something to the table regardless of the category. And for that reason, I think he's going to be an extremely popular pick, both in casual and competitive play. That brings us to the conclusion of our second video in the series about the champions of Super Fantasy Brawl, their ability cards, and their statistics. Join us next time as we look at the remaining 6 champions. If you want to learn how to play the game, or you just want to get a game in, go ahead and send me an email at poeticsgaming@gmail.com. Or if you want to give it a go yourself, go to www.tabletopia.com/Super Fantasy Brawl. Thanks again, I'll see you next time.